Hi guys, in this video I will explain you what is the benefit of SQL constraint. If you want to have a deep understanding of what is a database, how to create tables inside the database, and what kind of rules you can apply on each column when you create a new table, then I would suggest you spend 10-15 minutes of your time and watch this video till the end. Now, before we start creating an actual table and using this constraint by writing the code, let me first give you a small explanation about each constraint and then we'll create a table. Now, think about it from this perspective, guys. Whenever you create a new table, for the sake of security, accuracy, reliability, and efficiency, you need to use all of these SQL constraints. Now, pay attention. Now let's go over through each of them and have a better idea before we start creating a new table. Now, look at this table on the right, guys. I have employee ID column, last name, first name, and title. If I apply not null on the last name column, then it means that every time when I put a new value on this row, the last name column cannot be blank. I need to put some kind of value on this column on the last name. Otherwise, I will get an error. The next one is unique. Now, if you apply unique constraint on any column, that means that any value that you put on that column, it always should be unique. Otherwise, whenever you insert a new data inside any row, and then let's say if two rows have identical values, then you would get an error as well. That's why whenever you apply unique, it means that it guarantees that every single row should have a unique value. The next one is a primary key. Primary key basically is a combination of unique and not null. So not null and unique, if you combine both of them, they would give it the logic of the primary key. If you look at here on the employees table that I have here, on this table, this column is my primary key. Basically, the whole point of the primary key, it guarantees the uniqueness of each row inside the table. If you pay attention here, guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of them are unique values, and none of the fields are here empty. That's why when I mentioned that primary key is a combination of unique and not null, that's what it means. The next one is foreign key. What is the point of foreign key, guys? In this particular case, employee ID on this table is my primary key. But if I have employee ID on any other table, for example, let's say I have another table, not employees, but I have another table, orders, and in the orders table, I have one more column, employee ID. What that means? Employee ID on the employees table is my primary key, but employee ID on the orders table becomes my foreign key. Now, if you watched my previous video, guys, you know that a relational database management system, it's all about connecting the tables. Unless you connect the tables, majority of the time you cannot get the result that you're looking for. That's why whenever you want to connect two or more tables in relational database management system, the combination of the primary key and foreign key is needed in order to combine two or more tables. The next one is check. Now, let's say that I have a column here, one more column. Just let's say, think about it hypothetically that I have one more column here, age. And in the age, I would apply a special condition that whenever I add a value, that value should be greater than 18 years old. So the whole point of check, it means that whenever you want to add a new value, you give a specific condition that, for example, let's say this column can take only the value greater than 18 years old. If you put anything less than that, it will also give you an error. The next one, guys, is default. Default basically, now let's say you have a table for the students, right? And then on that students table, all the students are from the United States. So instead of manually entering all the time United States, let's say there's a column, we have a column country of residency, and for that country of residency, the country should be always USA. So instead of manually entering USA all the time, you can just default it as a USA, and then every time when you create a new row, by default, USA will be there as well. Now, when we create an actual table, guys, you will see how we can use them, but I think it would be good for me to give you a small explanation about each of them before creating a table. Now the last one is an index, guys. Index, it is extremely important when you start working with the big tables. For example, in the small table that I have here, using index constraint, there's no need for you to use index on a small tables. But whenever you have a big tables, you must use index. You have to create index on a specific value because it improves the efficiency. Now, if I go to my next slide, if you pay attention here, guys, even though it's a small table, but still it gives you a little bit better understanding of what indexing does. Now, if you look over here, guys, imagine that I have this column employee ID and I have all of these employee IDs 1 to 14. Now, when I write this query, select start from employees where employee ID equals 8, if I do not have index on this column, this basically will scan the entire table just for me to look for the employee ID with 8. It will start from here and it will scan the entire table. But if I apply here index on this column, it will sort the data. Now, if you pay attention here, the data is not sorted. It's 1, 9, 5, 4. It's not sorted. But if you apply index on any column, then it means that first it will sort the data on that particular column. Now, let's say if I say where employee ID is equals 8, it will find the equals 8, and if it sees that the next one is not 8, it will stop searching, meaning that it will not continuously scan the entire table. It will sort the entire column from ascending to descending, and then it will start searching by the value that it's looking for, and as soon as it goes to the next row and it sees that the next row is not the value that it's looking for, the search will stop. In that case, it will improve the efficiency by not scanning the entire table. And it is extremely important when you work with big databases, big tables which have a lot of data, then you have to apply index in order to apply efficiency. Now, let's create a new table, guys, and use all of these constraints when we create a table. Let's create a new table, and we will be using all of these constraints on the columns that we will be adding inside the new table. Whenever you want to create a new table, the syntax is always type create a new table, create table, and then give it a name. Now, let's say in this case, I would give it sales person, and then open the close parenthesis. And now the moment you open the parenthesis, now it is asking you inside this table, what are the columns that you want to add? Now, let's say my first column would be sales underscore ID. Now, I want this to be integer, and I would this one to be my primary key. Now, it means what, guys? It means here, guys. This means that this column would always guarantee the uniqueness of each row inside the salesperson table. Now, the second column, let's say, would be first name. And now this one, the data type, I would to be varchar. And I would just put how many values, let's say 2 to 5. And then I would say this one, not null. Not null is, guys, this one, what I explained previously. It means that every time if I want to add a new value inside this table on this row first name, this row first name should always have some kind of a value. I cannot leave it blank. Now let's say I would add another column, let's say last name underscore, and I would say also varchar, and I would give it also a memory allocation of 2 to 5. Now let's say this one would be also not null. So now again, it is basically I added 2 more new columns inside the salesperson table, first name and last name, and I'm saying that these 2 columns should always have some kind of value. I cannot leave them blank. Now I would add 1 more column now. Let's say the next column that I would add, it would be sales underscore address. Now in this case, my address, I would say also the data type would be varchar. And I would kind of repeat myself. I put 2 to 5, and this time here instead of not null, I would say this one should be unique. So now what unique means is what I previously explained, guys. Unique means that all address that I would add inside this column, sales address, should be unique. Otherwise, I would get an error. Now the next one, let's say I would put sales underscore location. Now in the case of location, guys, I would, let's say, put it again varchar, the data type. Now what I would do is, in this particular case, I would use the default function, and I would say that the sales location should be always USA. Now, it is the same explanation that I previously gave you guys. It is whenever you, let's say your business is in the United States, right? And then the person who's working for you as a salesperson, that person should be from the United States. Otherwise, that person cannot work for you. So now you can add a column, a sales location, and you put the value USA because every single employee should be from the USA. That's why you don't need to manually enter USA all the time. Just use the default, this default constraint, and give it to any value that you're looking for instead of manually re-entering over and over again. Now let me put it also the value, let's say 225. Now next one, now let's say I would give one more column, sales underscore age. Now in this case, this is the age of salesperson. Now in this case, the data type I would give it integer. Now I would put this column, now check. Now here I would say that every time I want to add a new value inside the sales age column, I want to follow this logic here. I would just say sales age should be greater than 18. Meaning that if you want to hire any person to work for you as a salesperson, that person should be greater than 18. Otherwise, you can't add any record for the sales age in that particular column. Lastly, now I want to add a foreign key in this column. Now let's say I would just create one more column here. I give it, let's say, employee ID. And the data type here should be integer. Now what I'm trying to do, guys, here is I have a different table. I have employees table. Let's open that table. Select star from employees. Now if I open this table, guys, you see that I have here employee ID, right? So on this table, the employee ID is my primary key. But what I want to do is, now in this case, I'm using the same here employee ID. I create a new column on this table, salesperson, but on the salesperson, employee ID would be my foreign key, meaning that on the employees table, employee ID would be my primary key, but the employee ID from the employees table on the salesperson would be my foreign key. Now what I would do here is I would just say employee ID int. Now I just type this foreign key, and now we have to give it the reference. I just say references. Now here, from on which table it is referencing. It is actually referencing on the employees table, right? Employees. Now inside this, I have to put this column, one more time, employee ID. Now what we just did is we just created a new table, guys, and this table is called salesperson, and these are all the columns that we added inside this table. Now if I run this table, we successfully created a new table called salesperson. Now you see it's called command completed successfully. Now if I want to open this table, I just say select star from salesperson. If I run this, now we just created a new table, and this table so far is blank, empty. Now let's test out if all these constraints that we just added working as expected. So if you guys know, if you want to add any value on any existing table, the function that you want to use called insert into. Now you give the name of the table, in this case salesperson. Now open the close parenthesis. Now here pay attention how many columns we have on this salesperson. The first one is sales ID, comma. The second one is first name, comma. The third one is last name, comma. Now we have also column sales location, comma. We have sales location after, first we have sales address here. Let me go back and correct it. Underscore sales address, comma, sales location, comma. Now we have sales age, and lastly we have employee ID. Now what I need to do is I need to, on each column that I mentioned here on the salesperson, now I have to add a new value. Now if I want to add a new value, I have to just type values. Now again, open the close parenthesis. Now, what would be my sales ID? My sales ID would be 1. Let's say now I just added for the sales ID, I entered 1. Now I want to add what I want to add for the first name. For the first name, I would just say, let's say Sam, comma, what would be my last name? Let's say my last name here would be, let's say Mike. Sorry guys, the names are not super creative, but that's not the point here. Now the sales address, let me put the sales address. Let's say 1234 West, let's say 2nd Street. Now the next column that I want to add value here, sales location. Let's say in this case, I would just say USA, and I'll test it out next time, and I'll see when we don't put anything, it will still show us as USA. Now the next one is sales age. Sales age, now pay attention here guys. I would add here 18 and we'll get an error because we add here sales age as greater than 18. Now here, since I'm putting 18, we'll get an error. Now lastly, employee ID here would be, let's say 1. Now if I run this code, now we're getting this error guys. If you see here guys, is that the insert statement conflicted with check constraint. So what is complaining now? The complaint is we're saying that on this table that we just created, we used check constraint, and the logic that we want to follow, the age should be greater than 18. Now if I simply change here to 19, this error will disappear. Now if I rerun it, now it says 1 row has been affected. Now if I open the table guys, you will see that we successfully added 1, Sam, Mike, the address, USA, 19, and 1. These are all the values that we added here. Now let's say we want to add one more value here. I will just copy the same thing and I'll show you as something else. Now pay attention guys. When we create the new table salesperson, on the top we mentioned that the sales location by default should be always USA. Now what I would do is I would remove sales location from here, and I would remove it from here. I just leave it blank. Even though I leave it blank, it will still add it because by default I mentioned that it should be always USA. Now let's say the next one, change the names. This one should be John, and let's say this one should be Lisa, and let's say this one should be 2. And now let's say the Lisa is 21 years old. Now if I rerun the code, you see violation of the unique key constraint is complaining about what? Now it's complaining that, hey, you already added this. Now pay attention why it's complaining guys. On the top, on the sales address here, we mentioned that the sales address should be always unique. Since we're adding the same address on the first row, and then we're adding the same address on the second row, that's why it's complaining. Now let's say this one, I will change it from the 2nd to, let's say, I will change it to 3rd Street. Now if I rerun the code, you will see it is successfully added a new row inside the table that we just created. If I run it, now pay attention here guys. On the first time when I insert the new value inside the sales table, I had this sales location, right? And then I added USA here. But second time, if you see here guys, I don't have USA. I just put the address, but I didn't put the sales location. I put the sales address here. I put the sales address, and then I put sales location on the first time. But the second time, I just put the sales address, and I didn't mention anything about the sales location. So note why, even though we didn't put a sales location here, and it's still showing us USA. Because when we created a new table here, and we used this constraint default, and we said that this column location, this part, it is always by default USA. I can change it to something else, but if I don't put something manually, the default is always USA. Now what I mean is, if I add one more row inside the table, copy, and one more time, add one more row inside the table. Now in this case, I would just leave the sales location. Now here, instead of USA, I would just say New York. Now let me change this one to primary key 3. Now this one, let's say, should be Philip. and this one should be, let's say, again, Sam. Now this one I would just change it to, let's say, 4th Street. Now this one should be, let's say, 23 years old, and this one I would give the employee ID 2. Now if I rerun it, pay attention guys, one row has been affected. Now if I open the table, now in this case the sales location is New York. So why is behaving like that? It basically says that whenever you create a new table, and then on the table, if you use default something and you don't manually enter it, it will also default to the value that you put here. But always you can override it and you can use a different value. So guys, this is the usage of the SQL constraint. I hope you learned something new on this video. For more videos, please follow, like, leave a comment under my videos. And then I have more materials to share with you guys. It's not only SQL related. I will have a lot of information to share with you with Java, finance, latest technology, and then things that can help you to go to the market and find a job quickly. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in our next video.